Hi everyone and welcome back to another Mixed Media Tuesday where I work in my square art journal. I still have a few more pages to finish this journal and today I'm playing with ephemera books. These are designed by Marta and if you're not familiar with them, check them out. They are ephemera collage designs inside that are really inspiring and you can make tons of projects using those. So I have the little personas one which gives you many steampunk looking kids, boys and girls to play with in different color combinations. Then I have another one which is full of mushrooms. You will find bigger, smaller composition of mushrooms or single ones, and I love that it gives you so many different color combinations to play with. Now I find mushrooms very whimsical and I tend to use them in my journals. I will be using those today as well. And then I do have the fall one which gives you many little characters to play with as well as pumpkins. I have used this one a lot in my mini journal, and if you haven't checked them out, here are the 4 layers that I have already created while playing with those, and I shared them as shorts so you can find them here on my YouTube channel as well. So in this series for this square art journal, I always start creating the background by using rice paper. So today, instead of rice paper, I'm going to use backgrounds that I cut out from this pattern paper. I get some comments saying that we cannot find rice paper or what can we use as an alternative. Well, if you cannot find rice paper, just use pattern paper instead. And other alternatives are cutouts from magazines, or you can definitely use napkins or tissue paper, collage paper, whatever goes. So here I'm just using my scissors to cut out little bits and pieces, squares and rectangles from backgrounds from these pages, so that I can put them together later on my page for a background. So I'm just going to collage them as you can see, and I always like to stick everything down by using my rice paper glue. It is great for thin paper and I love how it seals the paper also. I always follow the same steps in this journal and I did explain them in the first video that I did when I started sharing this series. So next step after doing the collage for the background is to add some white paint, either as a wash or here I just apply it with my spatula in different areas. I am using just white acrylic paint for that step. This is a great trick to help some areas look more faded if they are very vibrant, since you don't want your background to be very busy, otherwise the focal points are not going to show as much. And before I move on to the next step, which is usually my stamping, I want to add a touch of a different color on the background so that I can bring everything together with the focal points. And just because I'm going for a fall look with oranges and browns, I'm using here acrylic paint with a very stiff brush without water at all. The brush is completely dry to just transfer a little bit of color in different areas. Don't overdo it, that's just a touch here and there is all that you need. I like vertical and horizontal brush strokes, and this is kind of a dry brushing so I don't transfer too much color on my page. But you see I end up with some browns and oranges, and since I do have some extra paint on my glass mat, let's add some splatters as well. Moving on to the next step, and I'm going to do some stamping. For that I'm using background stamps from my collections. Some of them are now discontinued, but they are great to have in your stash because when I design them I make sure that they are perfect for pretty much any theme. So I just try to make them as versatile as possible. So here I just used the grid stamp with permanent black ink, and now I'm going to use those coffee marks just in a few areas here and there, which is going to add some visual texture on the background. And it's time to do some stenciling. I'm using the stencil with the dots and I'm going to apply white volume paste. And notice that I apply the volume paste in different areas really organically, and I mainly stay over those orange areas so that they don't end up being so dark. just by having those dots on top of them. I don't want my background to look very busy. Now I'm happy with how my background is looking and it's time to play with the focal points. I decided to go with this adorable bird. I absolutely love the fact that it has shoes and I'm just going to fuzzy cut it. Now if you take a look at the legs, they are super tiny and thin, which is going to make it difficult to fuzzy cut around them. Instead, I just chop them off completely and I'll just draw a couple of lines when I put everything together, and this will give me the opportunity to have the bird as tall or as short as I want. I'm also going to use a mushroom and I chose this one because it matches with the oranges and brown colors that I want. It matches the colors of the bird beautifully. And this is what I have fuzzy cut, the bird with the shoes, a big mushroom and a smaller mushroom. Now it is time to put everything together to create my focal point. I want to have the bird standing on top of the bigger mushroom and I'm going to stick everything down with my rice paper glue. Now I'm going to apply a good amount of rice paper glue underneath my elements, then stick them on top and I will seal them down as well. I am planning to use my big brush markers to add shadows and highlights, so I need to make sure that everything is covered with rice paper glue to turn them into non-porous surfaces, otherwise that technique is not going to work. Now, just because I need that bird to stand on top of the mushroom, I cannot fit the mushroom as it is since I'm working on a 6x6 page. So I have some of it going outside of the page, which of course I'm going to use later on my scissors to chop off the excess. I'm just adding an extra mushroom at the bottom to make it look more interesting. And the rice paper glue looks milky at the moment. When it dries, it's going to be completely clear. Now, before I go ahead and do any doodling or adding the shadows and the highlights, I'm looking through this book. There are 2 pages full of quotes, and I just cut out one of them that says Colors of Fall, which I'm going to stick on top of my page. And now it's time for my big brush markers technique. I picked a color of brush marker that is slightly darker than the leaves and I'm adding a touch of shadow at the base of the leaves. I will also repeat the same technique on the side of the mushrooms. This is going to intensify the color. It doesn't cover what is underneath because it is semi-transparent. However, it intensifies the colors and it brings them more to life. I'm going to bring in a darker brown to do the shadows. Don't be afraid to play with shadows. It really makes a difference and helps all the focal points pop even more. So I already know where the shadows and the highlights are in these mushrooms. That's why I only added the brown on that side. Here I'm intensifying the colors and the shadows at the bottom of the bird, and I will do the same thing for the wing. And of course, let's not forget the base of the mushrooms. Again, on the side where you can see the shadows, I'm going to add a touch of that brown to intensify the shadows even more. You will find that once you do that, all your elements are going to pop against the background and it kind of brings everything to life. It is a technique that I absolutely love. Next step, and I'm using a fine black marker to go around some areas of my cutouts. I'm not going to draw perfect lines all around to the perfect outline. I'm just adding sketchy lines here and there where I feel those elements need to pop even more. Then I'm going to bring in my white gel pen and add some highlights, again randomly here and there. Final touch, and I'm adding some white splatters. I'm using white calligraphy ink for that. And I'm going to call this page done. So that was the project for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. There is a full list of all the supplies linked down below in the description. Thank you all for joining me and I'll see you all next time.